Hello, everybody, and welcome to Publish Me, Punish Me, a comedy series that's examining deal practices within the games industry with me, Evva Karr, founder and CEO at Glitch.
And I am Sun, the studio director of Perfect Garbage. Each episode of Publish Me, Punish Me, we dive into indie publishers, crowdfunding, equity deals, and more.
So whether it's the good, the bad, or just plain yikes, we're going to talk about it all. If you're interested in discussions about the design and business of video games, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel below.
Evva, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about co-development.
What does that mean?
What the heck is co-development? Son, have you heard of co-development before? What have you heard about co-development before?
As someone who has a co in one of their job titles, I'm quite familiar. Co-founder. I'm quite familiar with the word co and what it means in a studio. But I actually think being a co-founder or a co-worker, all of the other co's that we know and love, is very different from being a co-developer in the game space. From my experience, a co-developer is basically someone or a team who ends up taking on a project with you or what you represent, another studio or so, whatever that may be, and you tag team and make something beautiful together. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. And my relationship, or at least what I know of co-development, is oftentimes just like, it's hazy until it's either really beautiful or a big mess, which is essentially just like two teams or a couple of teams that choose to essentially work together. Some of the most beautiful relationships that I've actually seen, though, are like teams that tend to do like service-based things for others. So whether they're a complete writing team, or they might do like animation, or they might be completely just like all porting people, like they come together and they make a thing sometimes, which I think can be really beautiful. It really depends on which relationship it is, what the co-development team looks like. And I've seen co-development teams be called, like just a ragtag team of service-based teams that just kind of like join
Frankenstein again.
Yeah,
together.
like they basically just like join forces and they make a thing, and then they just like they distribute again after the project's done. And then I've seen co-development studios that are publishers. I've seen literally everything under this umbrella that is co-development.
Well, actually, just a clarifying question. Does co-development also fall under the umbrella of like client work? So, for example, if a big IP wants to commission another studio, I can only think of Ninja Theory and DMC at the top of my head, which is not...
Everything always comes back.
I love one thing, but let's just say like it's someone else's IP, so it's really fleshed out, strongly developed, or the KFC game. You know what I mean? It's like coming to them with an IP. I remember there was a KFC Vienna. I was like,
yes, I do remember. But of all your
that's what I think about.
All of the examples, the KFC game.
Yes. Point is, a client who's got an established lore,
like KFC and the Colonel.
KFC. I bet you that rule book was strict when they got it.
Sure.
What you can and cannot have in that game, and the team did something with it. Are those actually considered co-development sometimes?
See, I think we talked about this on the last episode, but I would consider those licensed, those are licensed properties, right? Mm-hmm. Like, to me, again, like the essence of co-development, sometimes there's not even like funding that exchanges hands, or like it just really depends, but it at least sounds and feels friendlier than an IP that is owned by KFC, that they are essentially like hiring out a team to make a VR experience between now and the next 2 years. Yeah, right. Like it just, and then there's a dollar amount that's attached to that, and then very strict milestones. And it definitely feels, I'd say, like, KFC or whoever it is the client, and then like the development studio. After all is said and done, what we have talked about really is the fact that co-development is a little hazy. It's oftentimes just an agreement, right, between a couple of different teams and or studios, and there's some sort of distribution of work that is to be done.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to hopefully feel the publishing part of Publish Me, Punish Me.
I feel like it's going to be a very clear message of which person represents punish and which person represents publish.
Yes, and the deals that we're going to be talking about today. Son, do you want to go first? Do you want to send over the pain first?
I will make you suffer. Anyway, my deal is pretty straightforward. It starts off with a pretty small development team. I'm talking less than 3. They are working on their debut game. It's something that they're very, very excited about, very, very passionate about. They've talked a lot about it on their blog. They've been really building up a very, very small community. Like I said, it's their debut game. None of them are veterans. They're not super integrated in the game community. Now, a veteran comes along and sees that the development of this project is seemingly going, I'll bet slow, still making something really cool. They reach out. They've got a lot of industry experience. They're pretty well known in the AAA space. And they offer like, hey, I've got a lot of background on this. Why don't we actually talk and build a relationship here? And of course, as a new dev, that is the dream. I'm really stretching this out, and I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. I
like to build a story.
Yes, so, tell us the story. This is your time.
Welcome to my campfire. As a developer and the veteran begin to kind of communicate more and work together, the veteran ends up asking for co-development. No money's exchanging hands, but because of all the services that they're kind of providing, they feel like, I would like to help you co-develop this game. Here's a list of factors that I can do. And the developer, of course, agreed. It sounded great. Again, no money is exchanging hands. They didn't really have money there to help sustain the project. So having someone willing to put in the work that had a lot more experience would be phenomenal. Starts off really great. They actually get a lot of advice, a lot of consulting, but it soon become relevant to them that all they're receiving is consulting help. They are not really being directed to third-party marketing groups. They're not really being directed to coding issues that they're having trouble with. Everything seems to be a little bit cruel with my wording at surface level. And at one point, the developer has received an understanding of the system well enough that the consulting didn't even really matter. They put this down and they said, okay, we'll come back to this. Let's just keep finishing our game. So they continue trekking on. They're almost done with development. They're getting excited to launch their game. And once they're finally building the final details, as we start to do our budgeting and marketing. What's that called when you start to predict the amount of sales? I'm really bad at that.
Forecasting.
They're preparing all of that, market research. They're getting ready to go. They're starting to build their own PR. It becomes a concern of, how do we split the funds? And at first the developer's like, what do you mean? We're a team of less than 3. We know how the funds will be split. But the veteran demands, as a co-developer who has assisted along the project, that they should be given a certain amount of revenue. Is the same as their publishing. They're self-publishing, by the way. Ultimately, I don't want to tell you how it concluded. I would actually like to hear from you. How do you think?
So many questions.
Yes, ask away.
I need to know. Was there an agreement down on the table at the beginning?
Yes. But
okay,
shaky. It wasn't a beautifully detailed agreement that had they didn't even have a revenue split in the agreement.
Okay.
It was implied that they would receive standard credit for the industry as a co-developer.
Was this just one person, the veteran?
Yeah, one individual.
Okay.
It's a bit spicy, yeah?
So kind of walk me through this shaky agreement, or the not super clear agreement. Yeah. Is it that it is does it define what their role is very specifically at all?
No. That is, I think, a very smart and valid question. Yes and no. So just like how we talked about, what does a development mean? They kind of used the term co-development and swung it around as the defining roles that were being played. So they didn't distinctly lay out, you're going to do this, 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 and this, and provide us this. You are just acting as a co-developer and in good faith helps projects succeed.
It sounds like they were acting as more of a consultant than a co-developer and are now demanding revenue share. That's at least what it sounds like to me.
So I don't like publish me or a punish me.
I don't like it. Son, tell me how you're feeling about this deal.
I felt so bad. I actually can imagine maybe the veterans started out with good intentions. I can help with this project. They were in the AAA space at the time. They might have gotten busy with the work that they are doing full time, things of that and that just the project slipped through their fingers. As someone who has also worked as a consultant, and I know that you've worked as a consultant too, it does take a lot of time.
It does.
And a lot of energy too. But I feel like co-developer is not consultant.
A co-developer to me is also not a consultant. And I'm recognizing that you and I are like trying to negotiate throughout this episode what a co-developer is, which I appreciate. But like to me, a co-developer is not a consultant, and a consultant should have very specific, like, hey, here's how many hours I'm going to contribute every month. Here are the topics that I'm willing to chat with you about. And there's a big difference between like bringing you to the table and doing part of the work versus, sharing contacts or even just like, hey, here's how you could think about it. Right. Mm-hmm. That's to me a consultant. A co-developer is like in the trenches with you. Like they're working day to day with you, and on some sort of like predefined, here are the amount of hours I'm going to do. Here's the type of work that I'll do. But I am actually doing I'm physically doing the work. I am typing on my keyboard.
Yeah.
Doing the work. Right.
Whenever I think of co-developer, I think you are putting in, I don't want to say equal, but as much almost as the other group, because you're acting as their colleague. You're like trying to go together toe to toe. If it's usually one side is doing most of the development, at that point, just be a contractor. Because I feel like the implication, at least from my experience, is as a co-developer, you're going to sink the necessary hours needed to make this a success in whatever way we think is valid. And that is not just having someone's name on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I would say that even just hearing this now, I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it's co-development. And I would say personally no to this deal. Please, please, please tell me, what do they do? Like, please tell me, what do they do?
So here they are in a vague contract, ready to launch, excited about their game. And they don't have a high marketing budget. It's going to be a small release, so the money counts. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, they were able to have a discussion with the veteran who was really willing to nullify the contract and instead was credited as a consultant on the game. So it is a scary, I wanted to make you sweat. Ultimately, they did come to a conclusion together. I like to think that maybe the veteran kind of looked at like the development time and what they've contributed and thought, I get it. But they were able to come to an understanding. The consultant was credited. The dev team was able to kind of continue, although they did split and make their own little studios. They've all gone on to do different things now. So ultimately,
that actually turned out better than I thought.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad.
That wasn't so bad. I'm really thankful though, like the fact that they somehow figured out to just sit down, talk to each other about their concerns, and then came to an amicable resolution. I've seen so many deals that don't go that way.
Don't be afraid to call the other party member and actually say, can we sit down and discuss this deal we have? Because I really think that should be your first option before going to the other options of immediate mass destruction.
Yeah, like hit the button.
Self-destruct.
No, I actually love that. And I think that's actually probably to me like the moral of that that story is the fact that it sounds like the team decided to just start that conversation and to say like, hey, we're uncomfortable with XYZ thing and we would like to renegotiate the terms here. And I often find that folks might not feel like they can do that, especially if one party has never said, or either party has never said like, hey, this is a living agreement, we will go revisit this as we need to, or whatever that is. So good on them. Like that's actually really wholesome.
I'm glad. I thought it was going to be scary because in my head, when you're that late into development and you're asking like, hey, maybe this agreement we made like 2-ish years ago is not it. It's rough. And I can imagine the fear. And I probably can imagine a lot of back and forth that happened before a conclusion. But I am happy it happened. And I am also happy that they're all doing things they like right now.
That's dope. Game dev is oftentimes, it's so project based. And I feel like it's a moment in time where like you get to collaborate with all of these different people. And then sometimes it works out where you continue on with that team and sometimes it doesn't. And the best that you can do is like figure out how to amicably break it apart or like break it off. And no, what is this? You're like, no. why are these up? No, I think it's neat. So I'm glad that turned out for all of them and that they were able to talk about it, and that's a huge success in of itself.
Maybe I'm not so evil after all.
No, where are your devil horns today?
I got nerfed. It's okay. I can be meaner next time.
I like having episodes where it's not like nightmare deals all the time, because there are good ones.
I was gonna say, I feel like because now we're both bringing something to the table, it's gonna be a little bit of variation.
What is that accent?
Mamma mia!
There's something to the table.
It's a what?
It's me, Mario, bringing something to the table. Okay, so my deal is a co-dev deal that happened. I'd probably say, in the early stages before the words co-development had even happened. It's just this team of a couple folks.
Just kidding.
Maybe like 2016. Geez, son. Just kidding.
Sorry, I dated myself.
It was really just the teams that kind of first started doing this thing and experimenting with co-development. So this team, the first thing that they really started doing was like, hey, we're going to make a couple of GIFs and we're going to put them on Twitter. And then they kind of went viral and they got a lot of attention. They ended up having a ton of people who had reached out to them. But the only kind of team that they were interested in was this one team that was proposing co-development. So they said, I didn't know what it was until they explained it to me. They worked on certain parts of the game, such as engineering and then some of the design. But most importantly, for this developer in particular, they said that this person and this group focused a lot on business. They had offered an even 50-50 split, and they didn't put down any dollars. So they had felt somewhat like comforted by this, that this team was really coming in and essentially helping them on a couple of very specific items. So they were like, hey, we're open to going 50-50, but this developer was actually very, very smart, and they negotiated down a little bit. So they actually were able to do 60-40, which is really cool and good on them. And what was really awesome about this project was that the co-development partner actually went off and essentially pitched the game and got them funded by a platform. So they said in their final words, like, this was my first game, and it was helpful for them to basically have this kind of like pilot of someone just showing them the ropes and coming in and doing co-development with them, and very clear and defined outline of how this was going to work out. So they said, while I didn't learn all of the business and also some of the engineering at the time, they felt like they couldn't have actually done it without this co-development team, which I thought was very wholesome and very enjoyable to like hear. And that's the story. This team seems like they had a good time, and I'm realizing that I should have asked you how you felt about it. See, this is my first time delivering this shit.
I felt like it was nice. Mm-hmm. Sounds.
Would
really
you publish
nice.
me?
No, I'd fight still. No, this is definitely a publish me. I think that it's very, very wonderful that it, like you said, it was good faith in the best way. The developer who's going to come assist really laid out what they can and cannot do, it sounds like, and exactly what they are going to provide for that team. And I honestly think having a co-developer who's willing to not only help development, but also with biz dev, especially on your first game, which is, again, I think what my deal really craved as well, is amazing. Like, I genuinely think that whatever the revenue split was, whatever how they organized it, it sounds like that co-developer did come in with the team in mind, when reaching out, and was willing to work with the parameters that I'm sure the team had set. And good on the team for being able to negotiate that 60-40. It is scary when it's your first like contract and your first game and your first everything.
Yeah,
and you have to drive
it was the
bargain.
first one. Yeah,
that's really cool. And also good on that co-development team to be like well enough to be pitching these types of things. I just thought that was really nice for some reason, because we've talked about agents, we've talked about what it's like to pitch, and so I don't know, that's no small feat. And I don't know the story. Was the co-developer well known?
The co-developer was actually pretty well known. It sounded like they had been doing essentially like some of this early on with some other teams, and they are also veterans. Like they've been around in the games industry for essentially like almost 20 years from my understanding.
Do you think that the same thing would happen if someone you've never heard of came and said, let me co-develop your game for 50-50? I think that's a leap of faith.
It is. I can imagine that being super challenging, and most people would say no. Yeah. Unless there's, dollars that are oftentimes attached to it or something of sorts,
Something interesting is that both deals that we brought did not have money exchange hands. And you pinged me mentally when you said that. Mm-hmm. And do you think, I know you asked me a question, but to throw it back at you, do you think that like money makes things complicated? I answered my question. That was a question. Money makes things complicated.
Yes, but I would also add to this that like at some point there will also be dollars that are coming in, right? So as long as you kind of plan, well, you hope that there are dollars that are coming in. So as long as you plan for what happens when the dollars actually come in, I can imagine that being okay. When there are publishing funds that are available, I could see why that would be frustrating, or why it would be complicated.
I think money makes you weigh, because what we're talking about right now is invisible money, is like what I like to call the revenue split is invisible money until you get it. You kind of, if you're not business savvy, you're not going to notice it right away or really give it a lot of time to think about until like you start getting closer to launch. But with real money, I think when you get real money, you tend to be, I don't want to say more forgiving, but maybe more lax. So if there's certain deal terms, I can imagine like, okay, but we got money, so maybe they're not, maybe that's what they're using as their co-development instead. Or maybe it makes separating harder, or maybe the money isn't enough to fund either of you and you're both stuck, which I always is my biggest fear. Like, thanks for the money, but also I can't finish the game. And we both just stare at each other like wide-eyed.
It's definitely an added variable. It's definitely an added variable. I hear you, son, but I feel very skeptical of that for some reason. Like, especially if there is
clear, concise terms.
Yeah, like just very clear, concise terms, especially when anything surrounds money is going to come up and work to be done. So what will happen when dollars come in? Who receives it first? Like just make sure that you go through the steps. Sheet.
When you make your contract, you need a nice, clear cut term sheet, and then you both will be happy, and you'll co-develop a fantastic game together. And I'll play it, and Evva will play it, and everyone in the world will play it.
Yep. And we will retweet it and talk about it.
And we'll tag both developing teams.
Yes.
Oh my god,
there will be so many pieces of art and fan art that come out of your co-developed game. And then you guys can have a pizza
party together
and invite us.
So I guess what I'm getting at, the conclusion of our discussion, is that there's a few factors you always want to have in mind when making co-development deals, such as really clear, concise terms. You want to know what everybody is doing and what everybody's bringing. And you want to trust the person you're working with. You want to make sure you have a good relationship with them, which is honestly a lot of what we talk about with publishing deals and things of that like. And I think that you can mirror the mentality in all forms of deal making in games.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'd also want to add to this is the fact that both of the deals that we talked about seemed and felt like they were living deals. Like each of the teams kind of went back and talked a little bit about it. I think that's really cool. And they kept it very flexible, but open communication. Yeah. I can imagine that being very challenging if you might not know folks right away, but try to get to know folks maybe just a little bit beforehand, and see if there are ways that you can jump in to work on projects with people before you really take like a huge dive or something of sorts too. Sure. That can be another way to kind of like get to know what working with someone would look and or feel like, especially if you're thinking about doing co-development with them.
Cycles are long.
That's really important. Yeah, and you'll want to work with those folks. Like you want to have fun and enjoy working with them. And so with that, thank you so much to everybody for watching and tuning in and joining us for this episode of PMPM. We hope you had a little bit of fun and learned a lot about co-development. If you have a deal that you'd like to share with us, whether it's something that happened to you in the past or even an upcoming deal, please do submit to the Google form below. It's all anonymous. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed our show, and continue the conversation with us on Discord at discord.gg/HeyGlitch. You can also follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/HeyGlitch, and we'll be seeing you next time.
Nicely done, folks.
I just wanted to bring in one because that last one was real brutal.
Wait till we get to the next episode. I feel like we'll naturally balance. It'll be all right.